Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Opinion Machine, the show where we talk about all things gaming. My name is Killjoy. Today I'm going to be giving you my brutally honest first impressions of Dune Spice Wars. This is going to be a long video, I feel. I'm very passionate about this. And before I dive into this, there's just three things I want to bring up right away. Before we get crack-a-lacking with this game. Firstly, this is an early access game. This is the first early access game I've ever bought. So any of my criticisms, there is a very good chance in the future will be changed. Right? There are things that will change in this game. Potentially, because that's the whole point of early access, right? But I will say this is actually a very competent early access game, so that's good. Secondly, if you are expecting this game to be like the classic Dune 2, Dune 2000, Emperor Battle for Dune, those Westwood games, this is not that at all. And I am very biased. Those games are some of my favourite, but I am trying to take that away because this is its own game in its own right, and this is what the developers wanted to make. So if you're thinking, hey, is this like those games? No, it is not. Okay? And thirdly, despite some of the criticisms I will bring up in this video, I do like this game. I think this game is a solid foundation. I don't think this game is absolutely 10 out of 10 fantastic, but I think the game has a lot going for it, and I think with some of the things I would personally like to see changed that I will bring up, the game could be really good. But without further ado, let's talk about the game as a whole. What you're seeing right now is the very start of a new game. I've paused it. This game technically is a real-time game, and as they call it real-time with 4X, it's more like a 4X game with real-time elements. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily what I personally would have gone with, but we're not here to discuss that just yet. We'll talk about that later. What you're seeing right now is I am playing as the Atreides. There are 4 factions in the game. Up here you see the Harkonnen, we have the Esamir Tuk, who is the smugglers, and then we have Leia Kynes, which is the Fremen. And so right now there are 4 factions in the game that you can play, and they all have their own unique play styles in the fact that the overall gameplay is the same, but they have different upgrades. Or unique upgrades to themselves. They have maybe unique units. They have certain play styles that play to themselves. I'm playing as the Atreides because I think they're kind of a good game, sort of a more chill game to play going in. Just so you guys know, I've just got this set up on easy, and yeah, so it's not set up to be particularly complicated. Right off the bat, this is the map. You can see where the lines are here. This is out of bounds, but all the fog, that is the size of the map. I'm on the left here. And the way this game works is there are 3 ways to win. You have domination, which is to defeat all the other teams, which they all have a base like this. You have win by hegemony, I think that's how you pronounce it, which is just get this score and you win. And then you also have win by getting in the Landsrad, which we'll come back to later, which is this thing here. And you win by basically becoming the head of that, I believe. Anyway, let's just go through an overview of a few things before we really break down the criticisms and stuff like that. Basically, at the top here this shows who I'm playing as. This is your faction progress. You have, when you pick a team, you can pick 2 essentially advisors. They give you different bonuses. Here we have Spice, which in this game, Spice is basically the main way of getting money. There are other ways of doing it, but the more Spice you harvest, the more you convert that into money. And then along the top here are basically all the resources that you need to care about. Initially, there are other resources, but initially these are the ones you need to care about. What we have here is Solari. This is money. For all intents and purposes, this is gold. Next to it we have Plascrete, basically buildings for that. Manpower, which is for like getting units. Fuel cells, which is for ornithopters and harvesters. Water, which you need so people survive. If you have minus water, it leads to unrest. Authority, which you need to like basically take regions. And then you have Landsrad standing, which is the higher this is, like the better sway you have in the Landsrad, which is basically the governments, all the governments coming together. And then you have hegemony over here. There are other resources. One is intel, and the other one over here is influence. But we'll come to that in a bit. Let me just show you a quick, because like I said, the game's paused right now. So let me just show you a quick. If I hit play, what you need to do to start off with is you have this ornithopter. And this ornithopter is designed for scouting, so you send these around, and you tend to want to go to the first place where spice is. This is usually the area you want to go to, and for me to take this spice, I need to find a city. Now your ornithopters, the way they work is they go and scout and discover places for you. And what they do is they will discover the cities, and ornithopters go around and they discover points of interest and let you know what's around the surrounding area. You can find where the other teams are. And while this is going on, let me just pause it for a second. While this is going on, the Atreides has two ways to take cities. They can take them by force, or the Atreides has an ability, which will pop up in a minute, where you can peacefully annex a city. Now that's unique to them, and that means you can play a much more chill game. However, first city probably wants some units. So, over here on the right hand side of the screen, you see my ornithopters, and then you see military. Now military technically requires a few different resources. You have command points, which is the absolute max currently my military can be. Manpower is the main thing, but things also cost gold, or Solari. So Solari, water, manpower, and command points, right? So already we're starting to see that this game is very resource heavy. It's all about balancing those resources, which, you know, isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? So the idea is you can't just get a massive group of units straight away and go and fight. But we need to take this city. So standard, I'm just going to get a trooper and a ranger straight away, and I'm going to use them to go and take this city when I can find it. Now, other things will occur. You can see on the left here, this is the getting started thing. This is basically a tutorial. You get notifications on the left here. You also get notifications underneath the resources. One minor criticism is that these resource notifications that pop up here, I think should pop up on the left-hand side of the screen and be a little bit bigger. I sometimes miss them because they will flash and eventually go away. Anyway, let's proceed. So, we found this city. So once my military is built, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to go take this city. The city down here shows it has militia defending it, and this is my unique thing. Peaceful annexation requires 15 days, and I can go and do it. And this particular city has extra intel production. Now, I don't know if I can click on this yet. No, I can't. I can't click on any of these. These buttons on the right, developments, Landsrad, and espionage, are really important to the game. Developments is your knowledge, essentially research. There are 4 different trees. Each one gives you big buffs in different directions, sometimes militaristic, sometimes economic, things like that. Landsrad is eventually these things come up in the council, you vote for them, and so on and so forth. And over here is espionage, which you use to spy and infiltrate things. Now, one good thing about this game, if you want to speed things up, you can. I can click here and speed the game up significantly. We get those military units built. Bring it back down. So now we have 2 military units. Right. This is where the main side of the RTS side comes in. Now I need to go and take that city. So I'm going to do that. While I'm doing that, I'm going to get my ornithopter, unpause the game, and I'm going to use my ornithopter to explore around. Early on, it's probably worth getting another one, which I'm going to do. And you can see up here that my resources, now that I have 2 armies, they reduce some of the income I have. Same with the manpower, they reduce it. So this game is all about having positive, and as the days go by, you increase your manpower, your fuel cells, all that sort of stuff. So we found there's another city down here. There's another city there by the looks of it. I don't know if that is a city actually. But we're going to just quickly scout around. This is a unique place. Oh! Who's this? There's somebody over here basically. Now these guys do have supplies when they're running through the desert, never a clever thing. They will eventually die if you're not careful. Send them around. I'm just trying to see if I can find... Right. So combat. Combat in this game, unfortunately, is quite basic, but we'll just... The way it works is troopers are melee. These guys are... I'm going to get them off the sand, because if you know about Dune, there are sandworms, and the last thing I want to do is have this. Now, your military units should be stronger than the militia that are in cities. So, I'm going to take this city, keep wailing on them. Takes a little bit of time. There is some micro potential here, but it's so small a lot of the time that it's not that much of an issue. Are you attacking the same target? Or are you attacking different targets? Because really you want them attacking the same target. So let's kill off these guys. And once you would engage in the range guys in melee, they become rubbish. These guys can also level up. Here he is, he's doing his own thing. There's another ornithopter, so there's a House Harkonnen one, so we found Harkonnen. They're over there in that direction, most likely. Why you can do this ornithopter here, this one I'm just going to stick on auto recon. He's going to go off and do his own thing. Alright, so we've taken this city, we click on this button here. if it lets me. Why can't I take the city? What's going on here? There we go. Take control. So now we can take over this city. These guys are not happy. Local production's down. Not happy. But, so we've gained our first city. Now this game really does require you to... There's so much going on in this game that you do really need to be careful of what you plan on taking over and doing and things like that. There's a lot of like timed elements as well. But... we'll do this city, and then I'll try and start explaining the things that I kind of like and don't like. One thing I wanted to say right now is I love the look of this game. This game is a really nice art style. They've done a really good job designing certain things. And there's another city to my left, which is also really good. Right, so we gained the city, or this little outpost, if you will, and it tells you up here, new village controlled, water reduction, development research. We'll come back to that in a second. So, new city. What can I do in this city? I can add its own militia to help defend it when there are like either other people attack me or Fremen raids, like that can happen. But we can build things, and we have economy, we have military, and we have statecraft. Now you can only have up to 5 buildings in a city, and you can only build one thing at once. Well, this happens to be a place with spice, so the natural thing to do is to build a refinery, which we're going to do. We're going to put the refinery there, let these guys heal up, and...
Yes, sir. Okay.
He's doing that. He's found a city there. Now we're going to build that. And you'll see that now I own this land. So this is now part of my land here. There's also things on the map. Crash shuttles. These can do... You can send people to do this. You can send your ornithopter to go and get stuff like that. So there's a lot here, basically. Oh yeah, research. This is my research screen. You can see that I have 4 that I can start with. This is very militaristic. This is your intelligence. This is for your authority and kind of your cities and places that you take. And this is also... these I can't remember what the difference is. One's economic, one's something else. As we've taken over city, minus 15% authority cost to annex a village unlocks craft work. That's quite pretty good. Building construction cost, building construction faster. And you know what? Or we can go survival training, unlocks a military base, increases army supply, unlocks a heavy weapons squad, or we can go for intelligence. Now, they're all very good. All these things are powerful. Right now, I'm thinking we go for... that reduces my authority to annex one, which is pretty good. And this one makes things... We'll go with this material, and we'll go with that. And that starts us on its way. And you'll see here that this bar will go up, and it'll take so many days to do it. And so let's just speed things up again. You can see my ornithopters are out and about. Oh, he's out and about exploring the world. Going to find points of interest, which he will do. He'll go to a zone, stop, go to the points of interest, or go somewhere else. Oh, he's found another city. He's probably going to explore that, yep. Confirm that. Right, so the game is very slow, right? Which is absolutely fine. I have no issue with that. But once this is built, which is taking forever, I will. I'll start to go over the things that I think need to, need to be addressed potentially. Oh, what else have we got going on here? Spice production. Yeah. We'll slow this game down once we have got this refinery going. Come on. Alright, so this old harvester, I'm going to put him on auto recall so he doesn't get completely destroyed by sandworms. Right, so there is a lot to this game, and we haven't even seen the lands rad come up or the espionage. Like, the espionage screen will pop up when you gain your first agent, which right now I don't have one. The game itself is, like I said before, a good game. Right, I enjoy this game. I really like the systems in place. I love how the research is done. I love the choices you get to do with that. I will say maybe it takes a little bit too long. I mean, you can speed this up, but like, I don't like playing games when, like, to me, this speed right now is how the game is designed to be played. It's not designed to be played triple fast, right? Like, I get why it's there to speed things up. There for more advanced players, right? Also, you have the ability to pause, which is massively useful in a game like this, especially when you've got like a massive sprawling zone later on, and you need to handle multiple things going on. So knowledge and stuff, love that. I love some of these resources and how they're done. I'm personally not a fan of this plus and minus system. I think this works really well in more of a turn-based game. I think in real-time games it's kind of frustrating. If you guys didn't know, Shiro Games made this. They did Northgard, which I actually do like. But Northgard feels much more like an RTS than this game does. And like I said, I will get to that. And so now we've got, you see the research took X amount of time, and now these ones start to take a bit longer the more you do. So 6 days currently on the first ones, 9 days on these. Maintenance center construction costs, unlocks processing plant, which is a pretty powerful actually processing plant. But we're playing a peaceful game right now, I think. So maybe let's go for let's just go for like annexing cities, cheaper. Anyway, as the game progresses, you know, more and more systems come into play, and you really have to balance out the resources you have. Now that this city has built the refinery, I'm like, okay, I should build something else. Now, if you really want to be semi-efficient, I would recommend getting a plascrete factory pretty much in most areas, because you really want to have a lot of plascrete to build stuff, and they're always worth it. You can obviously build maintenance centers are cool. You have the statecraft on that give you extra bonuses, but for the sake of this, we're just going to put this plascrete down here, because the higher that is, if you've gone one resource that you have a lot of, you can then start trading with the other people and sending them off and all that good stuff. Right. So yeah. So the actual game at its core is a lot of fun, and it looks nice, and the development stuff works well. The Landsrad stuff I like for the most part. I would say when it pops up, it comes around a bit too fast. I think that they need to double the time you have the resolutions in place, which again might not be ideal, because some of those things could be more powerful than others, but I generally feel like it's too quick, and they just need to like maybe make it, if not 50% slower, maybe like 25% slower with those things swinging around. Personally, I don't want to have to, it feels very quickly that I'm constantly putting in resources into that. And we're about to get the espionage thing happen, so I can show you that now. Let's just speed this up. Right. Espionage. This is a really cool concept in this game, and I really like it. You get agents, and you can put them in the enemies and spy on them. You can put them into Arrakis, Space Guild, Chome, and Landsrad, and each of these different places that you put them will unlock you missions and operations, basically. And these are like little buffs and debuffs to the opponent. Some are significantly more powerful than others. I like to go and stick them in. If I'm playing as Atreides, I think Authority is really, really powerful. Also, you actually find Siege a lot quicker. Space Guild is much more like manpower intel. Chome is money. And Landsrad is influence. So, as the Atreides, Arrakis and Landsrad are a good place to start. I'm going to stick this one in Arrakis. This will level up slowly, but what this basically means is that I will gain these abilities with that agent in there. And having that extra authority is great. And then these are the missions. You gain intel. So this is another resource. You need intel to do these missions. As you can see, it starts to, you know, there's a lot going on, which some people are gonna like. And so the game, I like to play the game at very slow pace. That's how I enjoy doing it. By the way, now I've got spice, I'm now stockpiling spice because I have a tax I need to pay. You can change this slider and get a lot more money out of it, which ideally you want. But right now, this is what we're doing.
Waiting for your order.
What's my buddy doing? Let's go down here because we've got. Let's have a look. I'm just gonna send him down there just to scout, because right now I actually don't know where anyone else is. All right, so we've seen the espionage screen. Love that. Love how that's implemented. Really, really fun thing to do that. I'm waiting for this Landsrad thing to roll around. So let's do that as well. Let my dude scout as he's going. We'll just zoom out here a second. Is there anybody down here? Yes, there is. Smugglers, by the looks of it. They have a lot of ornithopters. Christ. And there is the smugglers. So the smugglers are that far away from me, which AI can be quite friendly. They can also be incredibly frustrating to deal with. But let's send him over here this time. Right. Have we got Landsride come up? Not yet. So let's pause it, quickly do the research. Ooh. Let's go with Intelligence Network this time. I'm just waiting for this Landsrad to pop up, and that'll be the last thing I can really go over before going really into the nitty-gritty of this game and what I want to talk about. While this little ornithopter shoots over here. Off he Trotskys. Why is this not opened up yet? Raids! Okay, so this is something that happens in the game. These guys come from a neutral faction of Fremen, and they are probably coming to get this city. And they will constantly raid on your cities. It's very annoying. But luckily, I've got my army here. You can put militia in here, which is obviously a smart thing to do. It becomes more of a factor later on. Right now, I only have like this city to defend. Raids, to my knowledge, will never attack your main city, so you don't have to worry about it. Also, at this point, I probably would have gone and taken this, especially because this is a processing plant, which gets you a lot of money. But right now, we're not here to play the game completely properly, just to sort of show off some mechanics. When is the Landsrad going to open? That's what I want to know. Oh, trade request.
How can I help? So
smugglers, they want to trade. They want all this stuff for this. No, that seems like a bad trade. So there is trading in the game with all of them. If you give them favourable deals, you can become friends, less likely to attack you, all that good stuff. We haven't found anyone else, I don't think, unless that's the... No. Alright, well, for some reason, I'm not sure what triggers Landsrad to happen, but maybe it's when this does, but... Let me talk about some things about this game that I think maybe need some tweaking. First of all, let me talk about this being an RTS. They, when they had this game showing off, they said this is an RTS with 4X elements. I believe that is a little bit false. I think this is much more of a 4X game with RTS elements. And those RTS elements are really only there to make time pass by. They are there for combat, but they are not they're not involved in this game. Honest to truth, you could make this like Civilization as in its current state, have it be turn-based. Obviously there would be a lot of tweaking if that was the case, but you could have this game in a turn-based state, and I think would maybe make it a little bit better in some elements. I'm not saying the game would be, it would have to be, certain things would have to be overhauled, but I feel playing this game a lot of the time I'm like, you know what, the RTS side of this is very light. It is literally there for time movement and for moving your combat units around, and that's kind of about it, right? It doesn't really do much, and that's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of disappointing. I know this isn't necessarily the game that these guys were trying to make, and that's fine, but I do think the RTS stuff, I wish it was more pronounced. Unfortunately, it's not. One thing that I have an issue with is I don't really like this way that resources work here. This whole plus minus thing. It gets very messy later on in some games where it becomes such a balancing act, and this is just the stuff here. This isn't including the fact that you have influence here and you have intel here. You know, and you have command points, which is hardly ever shown off. So there are so many different resources in this game. Now, most of them make logical sense. The one I have the biggest issue with is fuel cells. Fuel cells is literally for two vehicles. The Ornithopter and the Harvesters. This, I feel like, could be amalgamated into manpower. You can upgrade your Harvesters with manpower. I don't like this thing at all. The fuel cell buildings, I think there are upgrades later on that gain the more money, if more fuel cells you have, the more money you get. But the difference between fuel cells and water is you get a base upgrade of those. You do not get them like they are here, right? So you have two very different resource systems going in play. You've got one that's accumulative, and then you've got one that just gives you a lump sum. And I just don't think fuel cells are like in this game, having played it, I feel like fuel cells is the one thing you get when you need it. Like, you hardly get fuel cells, and it just feels a bit, I don't know, I don't think you need fuel cells and manpower. They already cost a lot to get stuff. Everything in this game costs a lot, realistically. Everything has upkeep, everything costs a lot to build. Military units, 200 Solari, 200, 300, 400, 500. Everything in this game costs so much, and that having this extra resource for then your harvesters and your ornithopters is it's just a bit much. I feel like that's the one thing I would just be like, scrap fuel cells, chuck them in with the manpower, and just have you get a bit more increased manpower. And I think that, because the problem is, in this game right now, there are no vehicles you can use for combat. If there were combat vehicles, I think this would make more sense. But I really don't like the fact that I need to... This is one resource I don't want to focus on, but then I need it for like harvesters and ornithopters, and it's just a bit frustrating. It's not necessarily like... It's not like something that's completely worthless, but it definitely feels like something you don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, unless you've got a whole play around selling them off. The overall speed of the game, the actual speed of the game on normal, like this, I'm fine with, because I can pause the game. I like playing it at a slow pace, lets me deal with stuff. That's not a problem. What I have a problem with is the speed at which this research starts to take. This stuff starts to take very long times. It needs to be just a little bit quicker. Same, unlike the Landsrad, which needs to be a bit slower. And everything in this game just takes a very long time. Now, I understand this with 4X style games, they are long style games. They are meant to be games that you play for a long period of time, but it can feel like even training units takes ages. Building things in this game take ages, and that's something else. For an RTS, I don't feel like my building placements matter. I don't feel like the way that buildings work in this game, and you have to add slots and stuff. I hate this. I hate this mechanic. Let me build 5 buildings in it without costing me to add slots. Yes, it adds a strategical element to it, but it's just one of those things that makes this feel less and less like an RTS, and more like a 4X game. You know, like, get rid of the building cost and just let me build them. Let me build one thing at a time and do that. And yeah, it's things like that. Which brings me on to my absolute biggest problem with this game. I like this game. I think this game is really well put together and really well thought. But the one thing that they have really, really like not put any that's not right to say. The one thing that feels like it needs more work is the combat system. If I unpause the game,
Yes, sir.
my combat system is these units, right? So let's bring the units over. This is where the RTS elements come from. I don't have to micro my harvester. Oh, Landrad's come up. We'll cut to that in a minute. I don't have to micro my harvester. I don't have to micro my ornithopters. They can't be shot down currently, to my knowledge. I have different military units. I have troopers, rangers, all this sort of stuff. These are so generic and so boring. Like, they literally have no... There's just nothing to it. Combat literally works, and I'll show you... let's go and fight. Let's actually go here first so that my units can get their supplies back. While we're doing that, while that's going on, Landsrad, really, really cool. You get to see what's up, these resolutions that are coming up, and then you get to vote on them, and it's a really cool system. So we get to see that. Developments, let's go for survival training there. Let's just speed this up. Get my guys to run over here. Got another unassigned agent. Let's stick him in. I'm playing as the Atreides. Landrad, we like the influence, so we're gonna stick him in there. Right. Combat you to see earlier, right? But combat right now. So remember, this game's non-canon, right? And because it's non-canon, I feel like they could do some more interesting stuff. Now, each race or faction does seem to have their unique units, but this is what combat boils down to. What are we shooting? That one? I'm also stood here. Hopefully a worm will spawn. There is a minuscule amount of micro, right? When you have bigger armies, you can do a bit more microing. This is the thing that hurts me the most playing this game, is that combat is... Everything costs too much. Takes very long time to get army. There's a sandworm. One of the few times a sandworm will turn up. So we get off of that, we go stand on the concrete. The sandworms will mess you up. But this is it, and you know, for a series that has a lot of RTS roots and is like, you know, known for the granddaddy of like of RTS, the actual combat stuff really, really sucks, unfortunately, and it makes playing this game, like, part of me just wants to play like me, one other person, like across the map. Don't really want to play with all the AI on, because you have to think about combat. And it just sucks. I mean, even like there's like 4 or 5 units I can get here. There's a few more units in the game that you can get later on, but overall, it just doesn't have the strategic element to it. There's nothing interesting about the combat in this game, and that really sucks. And you know, I think maybe putting vehicles in for combat, that would be really cool. That would mix it up. And also maybe not taking the same ideas, but looking at the older Dune games and being like, okay, look, these factions, again, this game's non-canon, right? So the factions can have different units. They could have things that are a bit more crazy. And it does. I know that the Fremen have, you know, the ability to ride worms, and each faction does have differences. But it for me personally, this really stops this game from being really great, because when you lose your army in the game that I'm currently playing, the one that I've spent the most time playing, I lost my army fighting with the Harkonnen. But at that point in the game, if you're going down certain routes and certain resource things, switching can be quite difficult. And getting the money to afford it, yes, you can put your militia in there, but militia kind of suck. They're only really there to hold off stuff until you bring your army over. But yeah, everything costs so much, everything takes a long time to build, and this is the thing that I want to see change the most, but I think where the game is right now, this is unlikely to happen, and it's unfortunate, right? Because I think the game, everything else about the game, the spying, the research, all the stuff, regardless of the little minor tweaks that I want to them, I like what they're doing with this game. I think personally, I really think overall this game feels much more like it would have been better turn-based, and because then it would have made like the combat a bit different. Right now, the combat is the weakest part of this game, and I don't think many people would disagree with that. And it's just this genericness to it. I mean, they've even got unit barks. Like, the units in this game...
Awaiting orders. Agreed. Understood. Agreed.
We are on the move. Let's go.
They have unit barks from the classic games. Very, very similar anyway. And that kind of sucks. So, you know... It's hard right now because I want this game. I really to see a new Dune game in this day and age is awesome. But it's like, this is a fun game I enjoy playing, but I like playing it when I'm really far away from the enemy. I don't have to worry about army. And I will say this right now, I am never going to play this game multiplayer. I don't think the way combat is in its current state makes for a good back and forth multiplayer. In terms of spying on each other, in terms of trying to fight for different resolutions, that's really cool, but the combat shouldn't feel like this basic. It shouldn't feel this uninspired. It shouldn't feel this generic, and it does right now, and that really sucks. And I really hope that they might take some feedback on board about the combat and look at maybe tweaking some things or making it more interesting and doing stuff like that, because yes, the units do different things, but right now right now it just is, it's easily the weakest part of the game. So there you go, that is my brutally honest thoughts on Dune Spice Wars. If you like it, I do think it's actually a solid foundation to get into. If you're looking for a standard kind of RTS with lots of combat, this is not the game for you. This is much more of a 4X with that. And honestly, like, I respect what these guys are doing. I understand this is the game they want to make, but please, Shiro Games, if you see this, please reconsider your combat and either make it a little bit easier to get armies or do some stuff with it, because it's the one thing that is holding this game back from being like what I would consider like absolutely fantastic. The rest of it's really cool. You've got some amazing mechanics in place, but right now it sucks. And I hate combat in this game. So yeah, that's going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. As always, if you like the video, hit like. If you want to see more content like this, hit subscribe. Links for Facebook and Twitter will be down below in the description as always. And until next video, I will see you then.